Hi everyone, it is me E and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be kind of taking a narrow focus on a subject that may not appeal to most of my subscribers, but I recently read a book called It Starts With the Egg, which is about women's fertility type of stuff, and I wanted to share what I read in that book with you. And the purpose of that is that I know a lot of ladies out there feel like they could benefit from the information in the book, but they haven't gotten their hands on it yet. And I was able to get it for free as an ebook from a library. And a lot of people may not be able to do that. I don't think you should waste your money reading this book if you can get the information from it in an easily digestible format. So that's what I'm attempting to provide here. Of course, if you still want to read this book yourself, I won't discourage you from doing that, especially if you can find it for free from a library. But if not, I'm going to kind of give you a quick rundown of what this book is about, and I'll give you kind of my opinion on it. So without further ado, we can just jump right into it. Okay, so the book kind of opens up with an introduction to the subject and what egg quality is and why it's so important. I think that that's kind of self-explanatory to most of us. If the egg quality isn't good, there's a good chance it won't get fertilized. Even if it does, it'll probably end in a miscarriage, etc., etc. So egg quality is important to being able to carry a child full term and bring it home. Energy production in the egg informs a lot of its quality. So with that in mind, I think that's kind of what a lot of this book is about, is energy production in the egg, as well as just ovulation in general. So the first big chapter of this book, moving into like more practical steps, is about BPA. BPA is like a toxin that's found in plastics. A lot of plastics now are labeled as BPA free. So this is something that has kind of been on the public's radar for a while. We've known that BPA is not good for us for a while, but this book contends that it's also detrimental to egg quality and that BPA disrupts hormone production in our bodies, particularly estrogen. So BPA is not good for fertility. So in order to reduce BPA exposure, there are some simple steps you can take, like replacing the plastic in your kitchen with glassware. Also, avoiding canned food unless it's expressly labeled as BPA free, because canned food, the inside of cans is often lined with some sort of BPA type waxy material. If you do have plastics in your kitchen, the book recommends that you hand wash them in cold water rather than washing them with hot water in the dishwasher. And the thing is that even if your plastics in your kitchen are labeled as BPA free, oftentimes the BPA is just replaced with another toxin, which basically has the same function as BPA, so they still disrupt hormones and hormone production in your body. So go for BPA-free plastic if you have to, but try to avoid plastic at all costs, basically, is the recommendation of the book. There is a lot of research and studies that were provided in this book to kind of back this up, so that it's not just coming across like some woo-woo woman telling you to stop using plastics. And I found it fairly compelling, so take that as you will. She also recommended handling paper receipts as little as possible, because a lot of times paper receipts are coated in BPA. I find this recommendation to be a little bit over the top. I don't really find this to be a big concern, especially if you're the kind of person who washes your hands before you start eating. So if you're touching a paper receipt, as long as you're not ingesting the BPA, I think you'll be fine. So that's something that's kind of consistent throughout the book, is that if you take every suggestion that she makes to you, then you will drive yourself crazy. So I wouldn't say take the book with a grain of salt per se, but I would just say discern for yourself which recommendations that you're going to adopt. The next big chapter was on phthalates. Phthalates are found in everything basically, particularly like self-care items that are fragranced. Those have phthalates in them, but also plastics have phthalates in them. So a lot of the advice given is sort of consistent with the previous chapter, just cut out plastics as much as possible. The other things are to reduce the amount of fragranced items you have. So replace your skin and hair care products with fragrance-free products, or a lot of them are just labeled specifically phthalate-free. Also, home cleaning products, replacing those with phthalate-free options, and cutting out nail polish as much as possible as well. She says explicitly in this chapter that the exact link between phthalates and fertility is not really that well known, and that studies are still ongoing. So her recommendation was basically to take an abundance of caution in avoiding phthalates as it relates to your fertility, but understanding that really the research isn't quite there yet to prove the link. So I found the chapter on phthalates to be a lot less convincing than the chapter on BPA. So again, with the recommendations in this book, you kind of just have to decide for yourself what you think is really going to be worth it for you when you consider how inconvenient adopting some of these things will be for you. Then we kind of move on to supplements, which is the bulk of what this book is about. She starts out talking about things that might be surprising blocks to your fertility that you may not have considered. First thing mentioned was a vitamin D deficiency. I, for example, have a very slight vitamin D deficiency and have been taking vitamin D pills for that for like close to a year now. So vitamin D apparently can affect your uterine lining, I think, is what she suggests. So making sure that you are taking your vitamin D supplements if you need to is important. Also, watch out for hypothyroidism, celiac disease, as well as dental health. Apparently dental health can impact your fertility as well. So brush your teeth, floss, go get your regular cleanings at the dentist. You understand. So when it comes to the supplements, in addition to taking vitamin D if you're deficient, she recommends taking prenatal vitamins. Chances are, if you're picking up a book to read about fertility, you've already done some preliminary research on your own. So you probably already know that you need to be taking a prenatal vitamin. She suggests that taking a prenatal vitamin may actually help you conceive. I don't find that particularly convincing. Most people take a prenatal vitamin because in case they conceive, they want to make sure that their body has the sufficient nutrients to be able to feed the baby and make its spine and its brain grow as much as possible and what's appropriate. So I would start taking a prenatal vitamin. A lot of people recommend 3 months ahead of when you're actually going to try to conceive, and that's just to get those levels at an appropriate point in your body to sustain a pregnancy and to create a healthy baby. But it may also help you get pregnant according to this book, which again, maybe. CoQ10 is a huge one. There's a whole chapter on CoQ10 in this book. I already take CoQ10 because my husband's taking it, so I just take it as well. CoQ10 has a lot to do with energy production in the cells in our body, and therefore energy production in our eggs. So that is why she recommends taking CoQ10. The main thing with taking CoQ10 though is to ensure that you're taking a good dosage, 100 milligrams or 200 milligrams depending on you, and then also taking ubiquinol CoQ10, basically the easier fast absorption CoQ10. She moved on to talk about antioxidants. Apparently these are crucial to fertility as well. Melatonin is a big antioxidant, but you should really only use this melatonin if you are an IVF patient. It's not really suited for other folks because melatonin can interfere with hormone balance. It's not as important if you're doing IVF because you're basically being pumped full of so many other medicines that it would kind of counteract any of the negative effects of melatonin. But for average people who are not medicated for the purpose of, hyperstimulation of follicles to produce a bunch of eggs, you're not going to want to take melatonin. Vitamin E also can reduce free radical damage in ovarian follicles, so vitamin E she recommends. Vitamin C is just generally good for immune health, so I've started taking vitamin C, especially with everything going on in the world right now. I feel like vitamin C is important to take. It may help embryo quality. Most of the stuff in this book, in my opinion, is just kind of like, maybe it'll help. So you're just throwing a bunch of stuff to the wall and seeing what sticks. And it's the kind of thing where, for me, it's like, if I really want to make sure that I get pregnant, I'm just going to try everything possible under the sun that may or may not even help, as long as it doesn't hurt. Alpha lipoic acid may also be good if you have PCOS. For women with PCOS, this supposedly helps ovulate. I don't know. And again, the studies aren't quite there yet. CoQ10 is more proven to help than alpha lipoic acid, so I would stick with CoQ10. Myo-inositol is for restoring ovulation, and it's also supposed to improve egg quality in women with PCOS or insulin resistance. But if you don't have PCOS or insulin resistance, this is basically going to do nothing. DHEA is used for IVF patients, but don't take it if you have PCOS. It is helpful for diminished ovarian reserve, but again, it's not good for people who have PCOS. The thing is with DHEA, if you are going through IVF, your doctor has probably already prescribed this to you or recommended you to take this. There is not the full scope of studies done with DHEA because they can't do really perfect studies, because they can't get women to agree to not take it for the purpose of the study if it could potentially help. So there's not the perfect study out there that has a control group of women not taking it versus a not controlled group of women who are taking it. But the general consensus is that it can help with diminished ovarian reserve, but there's not the perfect scientific research for that. But the thing is, with particularly the supplement section of this book, I don't think it's that helpful to read. If you are to the point where you're considering reading books that are over 200 pages long about fertility, you've probably already heard about the benefits of taking prenatal vitamins and CoQ10 and vitamin D and stuff like that. So I don't really know who this is targeted for. As far as the women with PCOS and IVF, at that point they're getting medical intervention to help them conceive, ideally. So again, I don't really find that the advice in this book is exactly groundbreaking, especially since most of it is just kind of almost homeopathic. It's not exactly 100% scientific. It's a lot of, I would say it's evidence-based, but it's not perfect evidence. So I don't really find this book that helpful in terms of the advice on supplements. And again, I think most of you have the common sense to know to take a prenatal vitamin or vitamin D. And if not, don't feel bad, but I don't think you need to read this book to understand supplements. The next section of the book was about kind of the fertility diet. The main thing that she really hammered on was carbs and limiting carb intake. And she really seemed to imply that you should limit all carb intake. The reason being that high blood sugar and insulin resistance can disrupt ovulation, and sugar intake basically has to be monitored or in moderation. A high blood sugar and insulin levels also can decrease egg quality, apparently. She doesn't recommend going full keto because there's other nutrients that are present in carbohydrate-rich food that are essential for a healthy lifestyle and probably also for fertility. So you don't have to go full keto, but you do want to choose carbs that are less easily digested and break down more slowly in your system so that you're not getting a bunch of sugar thrown in your system all at once. Carbs and natural sugars that are found in vegetables, you don't really have to worry about. The nutritional value and the vitamins that are found in those vegetables kind of outweigh the negative impact of the sugars. So eat your vegetables. Obviously, they're super good for fertility. But other than that, you want to choose, if you're going to eat carbs, you want to choose high fiber carbs and minimally processed grains. Even you want to be careful with things that are labeled 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain, and make sure that it really is 100% before you buy that bread or whatever else it is. You want to avoid pasta, but you can eat like wholemeal pasta and stuff like that as well. You also will want to avoid trans fats. Trans fats are found in commercial baked goods and in fried foods. Trans fats can also impact insulin resistance. And obviously you don't want to overdo it on alcohol and caffeine. So the kind of the TLDR of the fertility diet is to choose non-starchy vegetables that are packed with vitamins like broccoli, bell peppers, spinach, kale, whatever. You want to eat lean meat. You want to eat healthy fats like olive oil, avocado, and nuts. And when you're eating carbs, you want to eat whole, unrefined carbs like quinoa, wild rice, and buckwheat. Also, bran cereals are good for you too, in moderation. I personally don't eat quinoa because of some ethical issues, but I did try wild rice out like last week, and it was pretty good. As far as fruit goes, fruit can be high in sugar, but berries are good, and other fruit is good for you in moderation as well. And you want to kind of limit the amount of starchy vegetables that you eat, like sweet potatoes and yams and squash, but you can still have them. Basically, you just want to avoid super sugary foods, sugar in general, white bread, breakfast cereal, pasta, processed foods, caffeine, and alcohol. The last section of the book was about sperm quality, which is obviously just as important as egg quality. For sperm quality, basically, you're going to look at all of the same recommendations for diet as well as supplements mostly. CoQ10 is excellent for sperm quality, so that's really huge. And then, of course, avoiding alcohol and caffeine. But one extra thing to take into account for sperm quality is to keep it cool, because sperm production can't really happen if your man's overheated, so make sure you keep it cool down there, loose fitting pants, that kind of thing. So in conclusion, the things that I have adopted from this book, I have reduced some of the plastic in my kitchen, replaced it with glass or ceramic items. I have switched to, or started switching, I should say, to natural cleaning products. I really dislike the whole, I don't have chemicals in my house, because everything is made of chemicals. Like, their chemicals and chemistry is the building blocks of our world. So just less harsh chemicals, things that are less toxic to you if inhaled, that kind of stuff. So I have switched over to using those products. For the most part, I'm happy with their performance, but I still do use like bleach on my bathtub and stuff like that from time to time, so I'm not going crazy with it. I've also added vitamin C to my supplement regimen, which I figured I should do anyway with sickness going around. It will help strengthen my immune system. And of course, I've tried to cut back on carbs and sugar intake. I'm not being perfect with it, but I am trying to reduce the amount of like white bread that I eat and just sugar and candy and stuff like that. I have a massive sweet tooth, so it's very challenging. If you can get the book for yourself for free, it's very quick and easy to read. It's not a hard book at all. Even though there's a lot of research and stuff in it, it's very easy to understand, so it's not that intimidating. But I honestly don't really think it's worth the time even at that. So just take what recommendations in this video that you think sound helpful and run with those. And if you want to do further research, Google can help you out a lot, and fertility subreddits on Reddit can help you a lot. I've learned more through there than I have through this book for sure. So that is It Starts With the Egg. I hope you find this video helpful. I hope that you don't feel bad about yourself if you haven't read it yet. You're doing fine with what you're doing currently. I hope we will all be at the other side of this fertility thing soon, and that we will all have our own babies to bring home soon. And in the meantime, I'll be doing everything I can to make that a reality. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.